Friends, welcome back to our training for Mini Bible College. Right now, we are into the 5th session. And this module, we are going to talk about the most fun part, which is the use of the audio players, which many of you are using in the field. In fact, over 40,000 have been distributed as of the time of our recording these video training sessions. So we're glad to share this with you now. We're going to talk about one of the 3 manufacturers' products, that being the Davar Partners unit, which is used predominantly in Africa and throughout Latin America for those languages. So let's begin first by moving to a screen that shows you the fact that we are back to Mini Bible College. And now let's get into the Davar unit. It's called the N1. This is a new style unit. And some of you are going to remember that you have an older style that doesn't look exactly like the picture on the screen. So I'm going to give you a live demonstration from both, even during this mini session. First, we'd like to talk about features, and then we will get into how to use the unit, how to navigate with it, and finally we'll talk a little bit about the maintenance for these units. So to begin, in terms of features, let's remember how easy it is to use, far easier than a cell phone. This has just a few buttons to push, and everything you need to do can be done within those buttons. I'd like to also just share with you how easy this is to use, but also how durable the unit is. I'd like to tell you that you can beat on this unit, you can knock on it all you want, you can throw it down on the floor. We don't recommend that you do any of those things, but it is very durable. You can even run a truck over it and it won't break. So let's not do that, but let's remember just how durable these units are. And the fact is, it's because there are no moving parts inside. So let's talk a little bit more about how these units are featured. Another one we think about is the heat that these units are exposed to. You can place it out in the sun on the hottest possible day and it won't be a problem, but you don't want it to get over 50 degrees C. In other words, don't let it stand out in the sunlight all day long if you're in a hot climate, but it won't be bothered if it gets a little bit hot when it's sitting out in the daylight. These units are all water resistant, but let's remember that they are not waterproof. What's the difference? Well, you can sprinkle them as if you were just giving them a light baptism by sprinkling over the head or out in the rain, but you cannot submerge these in water. You cannot drop them in the river and expect them to work after you've done so. So be careful with the units. You notice that if you turn the unit over to the back panel, you will see that it is a solar-powered device. I'm showing you the back panel right here, which is the solar panel. This is where you charge the unit in daylight hours. And you can also charge it electrically, and we'll show you how to do that. But the fact is, you don't need to replace batteries. They have batteries in them that are rechargeable for life. And please remember, too, that this unit cannot be reprogrammed. The content is what the content is. You can't change it. Many of you notice that you can sometimes take the unit apart and pull out a little micro SD card. But unfortunately, when you do so, it does you absolutely no good. These units are pre-programmed, as are the lessons, part of the content. They are encrypted. The device is encrypted and the files are encrypted. So for somebody who wants to take a unit apart and replace it with a different SD card, that's perhaps an MP3 file, it just will not work. So you might as well let people know up front not to worry about it, not to try to use these for any other purpose. They just will not work. The last thing we'd like to tell you about is some of the features along the sides of the unit. So let me begin by showing you one side of the unit, which is where you would plug in one of 2 things. This little blue panel comes off. It's attached, but it opens up. It's plastic. And inside there, then, you will see 2 ports. One port is for a phone jack. This is what I'm doing for you right now. I'm showing you how it works. This is for a set of earbuds. I've got some earbuds with me here. I put them in my ear for private listening. It plugs into this port. Now, the same port, though, can be used for a larger device. It can be used for loudspeakers. If I plug a loudspeaker in, which I'm doing off screen right now, and I'll show you, here is a loudspeaker, and it's plugged into that same port. Now you've got a device that gives you amplification, so you can use it in a service of worship, maybe 200 people present. You'll be able to amplify the sound using that same port. The final port on the same panel here is for charging purposes. If you don't use solar power and you have access to a standard universal charger, you can plug it in on the same side here, within the same flap. So that's on one side. On the other side is where the micro SD card goes in, and I know it's hard for you to see on the screen, but I'll try to show it to you clearer. You see this little panel right here. You really don't want to even open that. That is where the micro SD card goes, but it is of no use, as I said earlier, to try to change that out and put something else in there. It just won't work. Now, I'd like to point out before I go too far that the same unit that was the prior model from Davar, it works the exact same way and has the same features. So we'll get into some buttons then and go talk about the navigation aspect, and we'll do that now. I want to show you first this new style Davar unit, and I'm going to move a little so you can see it more closely. I'm going to show you these buttons first, beginning with the on-off button, which is up here at the top. It's got red markings, and it also has red hash marks beside the red main button. So that is your on-off, and I'll turn it on for you for one purpose, to show you what happens. When I hit the top button to say begin play, the unit opens with music intentionally, just something really soft, because sometimes you're going to be in an area where you may not want people to listen to what you're listening to, or somebody might want to try to take this from you, and you can just tell them, hey, it's just playing music, and they'll know that just by playing that first button. But and what I did there was I hit this top button, which also happens to be your pause button, so it's play and pause, just like a toggle switch. I'm going to turn it back on and then advance it. I advanced it to the first lesson in the first series, only to show you that when we're playing music first, it's for safety reasons. So let's talk about the buttons then. You just saw that this is the on-off button at the top center, and then to the left and right is going backwards to the left or forwards to the right, to advance by what we call series. The series would be Sermon on the Mount is a series called Old Testament Survey, followed by a series called New Testament Survey, and then finally a series called Family and Marriage. Underneath each of those series is a course. Sermon on the Mount is both a series and a course. Family and Marriage is a series and a course. But Old and New Testaments each have 6 different courses, the way they're broken down, and that's just breaking up the courses of the books of the Bible. So to advance by course, you would go to this next level button in the middle to advance one course at a time. And then finally, within the bottom button, going backward or forward, you can advance or go backward inside of one of those lessons that you are on at the time. So the last thing to talk about is this button you see at the bottom, which happens to be green. See that? The green button indicates that you're turned on and you have enough power. When that button turns yellow, you're losing power, and when it turns red, it's time to finish this lesson as soon as you can, and now you're in need of a recharge. So those are the buttons, and that is how the navigation works. So as you let's do a little quick review. Forward or backward by series, Sermon on the Mount, Old and New Testament, family and marriage, forward or backward by course, forward or backward within a lesson. Okay? And you can pause it here if you want to just look at a unit. If you happen to have one, take a look at it as we're going through this, if you like. So the last thing we didn't talk about is the sound control. The sound is in the center, just below the on and off button, and it's going up or down to increase or decrease your volume. I told you it was going to be pretty simple, and that's just how easy it is. So that's your navigation. And this is where it becomes very important to remember that on the unit you do not have a list of the lessons. That's where you need that handout. You need that printed copy of how the lessons are organized so that you can see where you're going and how far you need to navigate forward or backward to find the lesson that you want to listen to. And actually, let me back up a step before I forget to show you. Some of you have the older style unit, which the buttons work the exact same way. It's just the buttons are in a little different position. This is the older style, but some of you may still have those. The top button by series, the middle button by the lessons or courses, and then in the bottom, within a lesson, forward or backward. Here at the bottom, I'm pointing to the on-off switch, and in the middle is your volume up and down, and over here is your pause button. So let me point that again. On and off, volume up and down, and then here is your pause button. So it virtually works the same way. This is also solar panel in the back for solar charging, so everything I just said about the newer style unit applies to the old. So now let's talk about charging and maintenance, because that's the most important aspect, so you can keep these things going for many, many years. We turned on a unit just yesterday, and the unit was made in 2007. So that's now 9 years ago. And this unit hasn't been used very much, but obviously it's still working. So if you take care of your equipment will take care of you, just like your car. Let's talk about the battery status first. The battery status is really easy to maintain. What you want to do is to charge the unit in full daylight for 5 to 10 hours. And when you do, it will run that long. When you see that red light, as I mentioned, that's when you need to stop and do your recharge as soon as you possibly can. The battery is charged at the factory, but sometimes these things sit in a box before they get to you. So you definitely want to, the first thing you really want to do every time is to charge the unit before you begin using it in the field. Using the solar panel then toward the daylight, 5 to 10 hours, at least 5.5 hours in full sunlight will do the trick. And if you happen to have a charger, an electric charger, then you can certainly do that as well for just 2.5 hours. When you do that, you'll see that the light becomes green again and you're ready to go. In terms of care and maintenance, I mentioned that this is water resistant, not waterproof. Now also, when you are out in the field, you want to try to make sure that you keep dust away from the speaker element of these units. And that is very important, because the more dust gets in there, the more you lose sound quality, and eventually it could just damage the unit altogether. So those are the main points as far as care and maintenance is concerned. Once again, just to review, when you see that red light, that's when you need to recharge. The green light says you have a good charge. If neither one of those lights comes on, then you have to really just start over. And first of all, try to recharge completely before you test the unit again. So friends, that is the nature of the audio player, again, using the Davar brand. And we will do a separate recording for those who are using a different product called MegaVoice. So we thank you for your attention to this, and we just look forward to working with you in the field, and we'll see you wherever God leads us. So thank you again for your attention, and may God bless you all. Bye-bye.